And as I'm adding the couplers on this engine, as you can maybe tell, we're getting pretty close to being done. And as I've said before, the couplers are one of those very small details that sort of good to, well, it's all good to measure, as I've said before, but it's definitely good to take a second measure on the couplers because they stick out, and you'll hear me say that again and again. But keep them level, keep them measured, because, for instance, the coupler is a very important safety part of the train as far as that they hold the whole train together. And in holding the whole train together, the coupler sort of signifies a lot of that safety. And as I put the handrail on, these handrails and the steps that I was putting in, these are going to be painted yellow against the blue. So kind of definitely take a second note to keep them straight. And basically, and we'll just sort of put the horizontal handrail going across. And again, this handrail sometimes, on a lot of trains, not a lot, but on some trains, like we did the Florida East Coast engine the other day, the Florida East Coast engine, this handrail was black against red. It really stood out. On the CSX engine, it's going to be, basically, it's going to be blue against blue. So it almost doesn't show up so much that you're not going to be painting it. So, but just put it on just as a detail. You know, it's good to put every detail you see, but it's clearly compared to the other train, it's a lot less emphasized, but it's always good to put every detail of the train that you see because it practices your eye for detail. So we'll put the grab irons and the stanchions on it. And then basically, there's the finished CSX ES44AH pencil line. So now that the pencil lines are done on the CSX locomotive, we're going to start to eyeball where the Tomorrow Moves logo goes. And the thing about the Tomorrow Moves logo is, as I look at it, generally what I tend to do is I start to kind of look at the doors where it generally goes. And looking at it, it's always good when you look at a logo to kind of say, what do I want to do first? What part of that? Because you can look at it, you can sort of see the edges of the boxcar, you can see the CSX, you can see the circles, and your way of doing it might be different than mine. So please do not take my advice as the way we all need to do it. But when I look at it, for some reason, when I look at it, I see the CSX first. And I see the C starting kind of right under the exhaust stack and kind of right about mid-height. So, and a good thing to eyeball is that the letter C is, a circle that takes up about 2 doors. So the C takes up about 2 doors, and it's a perfect circle if you look at it. And again, this is where I say, if you have a circle template, use your circle template because it will show. I mean, go ahead and use it. And if you see, there's this little stick that kind of pops up. So there's the C. Then you look at the S in CSX, and the S is a little bit narrower than the C. And that's something you may not quite catch that at first or not, but you've probably seen them on trains. And as you start to catch these details, your drawings will really get crisper and crisper because there's a tendency to think each letter is the exact same width. But measure how big the C is, and it's a little over 1/2 inch. So then maybe the S should be a little under 1/2 inch. And if you do that, that looks just about right, a little under 1/2 inch. And the S has always been to me the most difficult part of this logo, including the boxcar part and everything. I at times just get where this S is so difficult. I just did it fairly quickly. I know, because I'm doing a video and I'm trying to do it quickly. But if that S takes 5, 6 tries, 6, 7 tries, do not be discouraged. And if it takes time and time again, I almost recommend that you take it and you practice on a side piece of paper. I'm going to do it over here, but practice it a couple of times. Why I recommend you practice it a couple of times over on a side piece of paper is, if you've just watched, we have just drawn this train for an hour or more, and I drew it very quickly. This may have taken you 2-3 hours to draw, and do not lose your whole drawing over putting a C or an S on it, because the logo, for me even, is usually the hardest part of the whole drawing. So practice that again and again. That's why I do the logo demonstrations, is so that we can practice those S's and C's again and again before you actually take them to your finished drawing. Then the X is wider than even the C. And again, this is why it's great to watch the logo demonstrations. And so since the C was a little over 1/2 inch, the X should almost maybe be 3/4 inch. And see, that all looks just about right. So now we start the boxcar part of the logo. And as we see, the boxcar is a little taller and a little lower than the CSX part. So we start a little bit above the X, and we go a little below the X. And very important that you keep these lines straight. And one thing I do that's not a secret, but right at the top of this, keep your ruler in the exact same place and measure across. That way, the boxcar, if you hold your ruler like this and measure the boxcar over here and measure the boxcar over here, the boxcar will exactly line up. Because if you don't hold your ruler right on the boxcar and measure both, if you drew this one and then you drew that one separately, the two boxcars may one be a little taller and a little lower, and that kind of gives the boxcar logo a little bit of a kind of a skewed look. And of all things, what you're kind of trying to do in your drawing is give the boxcar logo a very nice tight look to it, because in the logo you're really trying to give the CSX logo a very crisp, tight look, and keeping things like the top and bottom very sharp look, and keep the sides as straight as possible. And now we move on to the cab number. And the other day I gave you the challenge of putting two of the same number on. But for instance, the ES44AHs are in the 3000 series. So this one that we have in front of us is 3049. Why don't we make this one be 30? And as I said before, try to line your numbers up exactly below the windows. And, you know, if we pick a number here, why don't we make this one be 3047? And then put the lightning bolt for the radio. And details like the lightning bolt make your drawing stand out quite a bit. And then up here in the number board, you put the 3, 0. And really, this is just an essence of the number. And again, in the essence, you really can only put an essence of the Tomorrow Moves logo on the front and the back. And there's a little bit of blue. And really, you just kind of put the side of the boxcar and a little bit of the X. And see, on the front you put the C, and on the back you put the X, because on the front you're looking at the right-hand side of the engine, and it says CSX, but on the back it's wrapping around the other way. So on the back it would wrap around, and you're seeing where instead of CSX, you're seeing where it would have said CS, and now you're seeing the X. And little details like that are very important, because you'll see in photographs, and there's a little number up here, 3047. If you see the C on the front, and you assume that you see the C on the back, that's actually kind of what the mirror image of the logo does, and that's a very important detail.